Welcome back. We're going to start with some orders of business. Firstly, yes, it's been a few days since a video. That's because I was at Liam Dempsey's Great Hall and I did a podcast recording and we live streamed a game of Warhammer 40k where my Armoured Company was finally on the table and it got absolutely rinsed, which was kind of, the level to which it got rinsed was surprising. I knew I'd lose. I didn't think it would be that badly. However, it was a load of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's over on Liam's channel. You should go and check that out. I'll put a link in the description. Also, Games Workshop has revealed 2 new models that we need to take a look at. There's a chance it'll be 2 different videos because it depends entirely on how much I gush over one of them because it looks absolutely class. And the third thing is that this video is brought to you by Serious Lights and there will be a word from them a little bit later on. Now, let's just get into this, right? I am massively excited about this because this looks like something that I would make and that immediately gives it points for approval, not because I am that vain, but because that means I have a particular like for this sort of absolutely horrific monstrosity. Oh, good lord. Look at that. I put so much energy into that intro. I'm now too hot. I'm now too warm. I'm too warm. And something that is contributing to that is looking at the horror of the Brood Terror, which is what this is. I can't get over this. This looks so good. It looks awful. My kind of awful. This is the kind of, biomechanical nightmare creation I am 100% here for every single time. Where do you even start with the details on this, right? Where do you even begin? Firstly, we've got a bit of like rat ogre type thing going on there with one of the heads, except there's a load of skin missing, so you've got this horrible just bare skull with a big horn poking through it. Absolutely horrific. Love that. Then you got the little lad on the side. Really gross, especially because it seems like the 2 heads have got a little bit of flesh connecting them. Like skull to skull. What the hell is that? Is it going to wreck things if we're going a bit closer? No, it isn't. Okay, that's good. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's just the knives. The knives. The horrible knives attached to how many hands? Arms? Okay, so we've got the bandaged one at the top. That looks like a sort of more stabbing blade. I think the middle one is more like, it looks more like scissors, doesn't it? Really awful garden shears. And then the bottom one is very, very metallic in shape, but it's definitely covered in skin, which is awful. Brilliant, but awful. Also, the warp stone just embedded in there, just shoved in, and the skin cracked around it. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. This is horrible. This is fully horrible, and I am absolutely loving it. Oh, God. So, it looks like there's a lot of mechanical stuff going on at the back. You've got that big sort of, I'm assuming it's a kind of warp fire / warp stone generator thing going on. There is a little bit of the storm fiends, not the storm vermin, those are just the normal infantry lads with the armor, I think. The storm fiends, the ones that have got those weapons kind of plugged into the arms, they've got quite heavy armor on. There's a little bit of that to it, but there's so much more in the way of horrible disease-laden skin and stuff. They've taken the concept of that and turned it more towards the, oh, what's it called? Is it the Hell Pit Abomination that's got the big wheel in the middle of it? It looks a bit more like that. It has that sort of vibe. It's as though the mechanical bits are more polished in the way that the Storm Fiends are, but the biological bits are just as gross as that abomination. I really like this. I really like it. Details like the stitching, when you look at the stitching, above the little head, the smaller head, littler, that's not a word. When you look at the smaller head and the stitching above it, it's not all the way across because it looks like it started to heal. There's a scar towards the end, but it looks like it's healing naturally, even though it definitely looks like it shouldn't heal naturally. That shouldn't heal. The cloth looks fantastic. The fur looks really, really good. Okay, before we go into alternate angles, because we're going to be here for a while, I have a feeling. I just suspect we're going to be here for some time. Before we get into alternate angles, let's hear from Serious Lights. This video is brought to you by Serious Lights, who I'm sure you've heard me talk about before, and this is my Serious Light. This is my Serious Light, and it's the high definition table light. all black. I've had it since December of 2022, which is kind of alarming. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, and my Serious Light has not left my hobby desk since the moment I first switched it on. It has everything you need for building and painting: an adjustable neck with a swivel joint, a dimmer wheel, and the ability to adjust the beam angle, all of which comes in very handy when you are, for example, painstakingly applying streaking grime to every single rivet on a Banesword tank. Ask me how I know. The high definition table light also uses Serious Light's daylight wavelength technology, which closely replicates natural daylight, which I found massively reduces eye strain, especially when you're picking out all those rivets. It makes it infinitely more tolerable. Head over to Serious Lights using the link in the description and in the pinned comment down below and use my offer code KIRIOTH24 to get £100 off a high definition light and free UK delivery. Thanks to Serious Lights for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. Even without looking at the back of it, this is one of those models where I need this. I need this in my life. I want it now, like immediately. If it could be on my desk this instant, that would be ideal. I don't want to have to wait for this. This is so good. So these are being called Crimes Against Nature, which I think is totally fair. It's a brood terror and it requires sacrifice, typically unwilling as is the Skaven way on the part of a master moulder, and the gibbering head that still protrudes from the beast's neck is a living vestige of that unlucky donor. Well, okay, but which head? Which head? That's the question, right? Because there's two heads. Is it the smaller head? Is the smaller head the donor for this? Because, Jesus, that's a lot of mass to cultivate out of one smaller lad. Also, if it is the smaller head, right? If it is the smaller head, how much of a raw deal does that rat get? Like, look at how many arms are sticking out of it. Is that his body that's been horribly mutated and then grafted onto another bigger body? Is there actually two donors going on? Or is one of these just vat grown? Do they just, like, carve them out of sludge and then bring them to life or something? I mean, we will have the answers to that at some point. I'm just, spitballing here. Anyway, I managed to get distracted away from the thing that I wanted to look at, which that's pretty par for the course, isn't it? You're used to that. It's so much worse from the back somehow. It actually is a little bit worse. I think because the front is very, like, it loads you up with the body horror real quick. So you've got the multi-limbed smaller rat attached to the side that's got different arms, and one of them looks more like a knife than an actual bit of flesh, but it's still covered in blood and skin and so on. The side and the back, it just looks like they just shoved everything in there. Like, I don't know how else to put it. It's like they just opened up the top of the sort of rat ogre side of this, if that is indeed what it actually is. Shoved everything in as much as they possibly could, stretched what was left back over it, and went, you know what? Job done. Job done. That's fine. It's not going to fall out. It's not going to fall out all over the floor. It's still in there. It's stuck in proper. That'll do. It's like when you're doing a kit bash and you know that something is going to be covered by something else, so you don't attach it as firmly as you probably should, but then you know there's going to be other components over the top that will, like, hold it in place, which, I obviously wouldn't do that. I would never do that, right? I wouldn't do that because, of course, when I kit bash stuff, I make sure everything is meticulous and I make sure that everything is exactly how it should be. There's no lazy shortcuts that go on here, but theoretically, if one was to take that sort of lazy shortcut, that's kind of what you might do. Not that I would do that, obviously. No chance. Never. Not in a month of Sundays. You just wouldn't see it from me. But here, that's the sort of vibe I get. Not that I've got any experience in it, obviously. The weapons look suitably mad, so we've got a big cannon of some kind and a chain with an axe head? Anvil? Like, is it just an anvil, but it's got, like, spiky bits sticking out? What the hell is that? It is basically just a big chunk of metal with a few spikes on one end, attached via some fairly hefty-looking chains. But there's a big wire going to it. So is that powered? Is that a powered weapon? Has this brood horror got some sort of, like, powered flail? Because that would be quality. Terrifying, obviously. Pretty terrifying, but also quality. But I feel like that might be what that is. Which is fantastic. My eye keeps getting drawn to one of these pictures specifically. So, on the sideways view that shows that big ball of metal that has been shoved into the top of this thing, the way the skin has kind of deformed around it, and it's not sort of stretched up and over it, but it's formed like a kind of, there's like a I don't know how to put it. There's like a folded over bit around the entire big like metal sphere that's been plugged into it. It is genuinely upsetting, and I'm not really sure why. That is triggering something in me, and I don't know what it is, but I'm not a fan. Like, I'm a fan in that this should look grotesque and uncomfortable, right? It should look horrifying, it should look disgusting, it should cause discomfort to gaze upon this, because what the hell even is it? But at the same time, there is something that is just really off-putting about that, and I don't know what it is, but I can't stop looking at it, and not in a good way. The way they've also just like dragged the skin over some of the components and then like plugged other stuff through it is really upsetting as well. It's just horrible. Like, it's actually horrible. Whoever was like the lead on this or sculpted the whole thing, I'm not sure how much of it is like collaborative. You've done a great job here. It's horrendous. Well done. I always like the miscellaneous technical gubbins that Skaven have as well, where it's just like, here's a generator looking thing. What does it do? Well, it's got warpstone in it. Beyond that, who knows? Who knows? Who really knows? Does it even matter? Probably not. Something I am finding really nice is just the like inclusion of the fur all over it, but in like patches. I think especially the back, it would look very plain isn't the word, but I think it would lose something without that. That sort of added texture is doing a lot to differentiate between the skin, between the metals, between the kind of stretched over sections as well. I think it would all sort of blur into one blobby mess if you didn't have that. So yeah, I like that. I think that's the right call. I think they've done the right thing there. Oh, okay, sometimes the Master Molder's personality survives this grotesque melding, steering the beast towards specimens of interest, but the majority of its brainpower goes to helping the Broodhorror wield all of its weapons in terrifying unison. I see, so one of them is... oh, lord, good grief. So one of them is the Molder himself, and the other one is the donor? So the big one is the donor, and the little one is the Molder, presumably? That's even worse. Like, willingly doing that to yourself? Is that how that works? Have I misread that? Either way, Jesus Christ, that's horrendous. Oh, it's so good, though. It's so good. You know what? We're not doing this in 2. We're going to do this in 1. Let's have a look at the Knight-Azyros for the Stormcast Eternals as well. This one, I'm not 100% convinced with this one, okay? I'm not 100% convinced. The armour looks fantastic. The robe under the armour, around the sort of torso area, I really like. The dangly bits down the front, I am not fully on board with. I'll be honest, I'm not fully on board with that. I do like the wings. I actually like the wings more in this sort of configuration. I'm not sure why. I think maybe they've just grown on me. It might just be that they've grown on me, to be honest, because they're not that different from the other... I forget the name of the other unit. The other ones that have got wings just like this that we looked at not that long ago. Look, there's a lot of model names out there. You can't remember them all. For some reason, the wings have grown on me, and I do like them the way they're set up here. The overall look is fine, but there is something about the robes that is like touching the stone and stuff there that I just don't like. It looks very odd, and I can't put my finger on why. I think for some reason, like, my eye is seeing that, and my brain is going, that looks completely unnatural. Like, I get it. It's a dude in armour flying with wings that are half mechanical, I don't know, and half fire that's black. Obviously, you're not like looking for realism here, but there is something to be said for like certain materials behaving in certain ways that kind of sells the model overall, and I'm just not getting that from the posing on this one, which is a shame because I actually think the model itself looks really good. The weapon is hardcore, that looks fantastic. The lantern being held in one hand looks really, really nice. Overall, the armour is good. But there's something about the way that cloth is hanging down, and also can't really see where his legs are, which is a little bit off-putting. I think maybe they're sort of like spread apart. I think he's gone like, what is it, like legs akimbo under there? So he's kind of got his legs out to either side, but it's sort of difficult to make out on first glance. It's like, does he have legs at all? Because that would be, I mean, it would be very different, but it would be an interesting design change. or are they hidden? And if they are hidden, where are they hidden? If they're pushing the material of the robe out, that would explain some of the like posing on it, the way it's sort of hanging down. But it's not really obvious, and it's just not hitting that sweet spot for me. So it can either be a Knight-Azyros or it can be Tornus the Redeemed. What's the difference between the two? So is that the Knight-Azyros and that's Tornus with the sword? Or is that also a spear? I think that's a sword, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's the sword. So is the helmet the... Are they being that clear about it, or is it just a case of you can pick whatever you like and it can be the named one regardless of what it looks like? Because I guess that's fine. The helmet looks decent as well. I have to admit, I think I prefer the spear to the sword. The spear is a bit grander. The sword looks kind of plain. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the Stormcast weapons are, I think, a little plainer than they used to be. Or at least the design has shifted a little bit. You've got blades that are a lot less chunky. They've almost like grim darked the weapons up, which is fine by me, because that's what I prefer. But there's just something about that spear that looks kind of cooler to my eye. So Tornus was originally a proud and indomitable warrior from Gyron, captured by Tornus the Plague God, who committed him to the pit of filth, trapped him in there for 77 days, and only released him after he agreed to accept Nurgle into his heart. Oh, he was a traitor then. A dirty traitor, literally dirty if it was Nurgle, while leading the Maggot-kin on a campaign of desecration against former allies and taking the name Dorglug the Despised. What a terrible name. You can bet Dorglug. There's too many G's in that name. There's too many G. It's too much. It's too many G's. It's difficult to get your mouth round. It's got like Evan Kelp sort of feel to it. I'm not a fan of Dorglug. Tornus is a much better name. If anything, that's a good reason to switch sides again, I guess. Poised to stand triumphant over a combined Sylvanas and Stormcast internal force before the Celestant Prime purged the corruption from him with Galmaraz. Isn't that one of the? Isn't that a Wordbearer's Dreadnought? I know that's not a Wordbearer's Dreadnought. It's just a very, very similar name. And gave him a chance at redemption. Okay. So is this is the one? So is this Tornus? This is the Tornus version. So it is identical. Okay, well that's answered that question. Jesus. It's amazing what you learn when you read the article, isn't it? I didn't want to read too much beforehand or like see all of it beforehand because that'd spoil the fun of it. But it is kind of answered. That's also kind of disappointing in a way. Is it? Is it not? Is it not a little bit... It's just the same dude. It's just exactly the same dude. Same head, same weapon. It's just the same guy. I think... I don't know. For a named version... be kind of nice to have something unique about it. Maybe that's just me. It's fine if it is. It's fine if it is. It's a subjective thing, innit, these miniatures. But yeah, that feels kind of underwhelming, to be honest. I do like that colour scheme though. That colour scheme's really nice. I'm still not sure about the robe. I'm still not sure about the way it's sitting on that rock. Let's see if there's an alternate angle and see if that helps. But okay, so he has got his legs, like, he's got his legs spread. Oh dear. So he has got his legs not open. His legs are apart. Fine, we'll move on. Doesn't look very... Oh, it's very unnatural, isn't it, actually, from that angle? That's not helped. If anything, that's made things a little bit worse. Is he landing? Is he taking off? How would he even land on there to take off? Is he sort of drifting down and he's got caught on it? Yeah, that's not the best flying pose they've ever done. I'll be honest, that is not the best flying pose they've ever done. It does make the front make more sense, though. It makes the front make more sense. Unfortunately, it's not, like, it's not good enough to make me like it anymore. It's just like, okay, the front I can see why the cloth will behave that way now. That's a little bit better, but the back just doesn't look great either. So, yeah, okay. That's a little bit disappointing, a little bit meh. Which is a shame because like the overall design is really cool. The overall design is really cool. It does also beg the question, now I think about it. When he lands, does his skirt just drag all over the floor? Does he not trip over it? Because that's a lot of cloth down the front to just like... Or does he never land? Is he always just high enough off the ground that the cloth never touches? Because if he does land, and to be fair, he might have to, because up here, right, that's a sword up there. That's a sword. He has not got the range with that sword as he's got with that spear. So is he at real risk of face planting if he lands too quickly? Because all the cloth gets under his legs, and then he just tips forwards. Because that's not great. That's not great. No one looks good when they're falling on their face. Okay, I've just realised something whilst editing. the thing that's bothering me about Tornus's pose, okay? There is a miniature that I've got called the Wraith, I believe it is, by Black Crow Miniatures. I think. I'll double check that. It'll be on the screen when I edit again. I'm getting all inceptioned on myself. They did a similar concept in terms of like a robed figure, armor, cloth, hovering but near a bit of rock. They did it way better. Now, admittedly, on my version, I didn't put the legs on, but on the like normal one, when you do have the legs on, the legs are just sort of dangling down because it's a ghost type thing. I mean, it's called the Wraith. What do you expect? But there's just something about the way that they've done that with the cloth moving, with it having a bit of motion, with it having a few more folds, with it being a bit more, I don't know, it just, even a bit more ragged, I guess. It just looks more natural than Tornus does. And I think that's what's bugging me about Tornus, because the pose is not dissimilar, the concept for the models are not dissimilar, but the execution on one is way better, and I think that's what was bugging me. Anyway, I need to now edit this bit into the... Well, you don't need to know any of this, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm not sure about this one. There's bits of it I like, there's bits of it I do like, but there's just something about it that isn't quite hitting the spot. And especially compared to the Brood Horror that we saw earlier, which is just so good. This one, I mean, he had a difficult job ahead of him. 100%, but not quite it for me. Not quite it for me, this one. That being said, you may well completely disagree. You may have completely the opposite viewpoint on this, in which case, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of Tornus, what you think of the big, ugly Skaven lad. I want to know which one you prefer and why. And if you think I'm totally wrong, say. It's just, you know, you don't have to agree. In fact, a lot of the time, I'd suggest you probably shouldn't. Let me know in the comments down below. Feel free to click all the things. Remember to click the link for Serious Lights in the description and in the pinned comment. Thank you very much to Serious Lights for sponsoring this video, and I will see you for the next one.